everybody, rolling again. Got a special guest today here trying to wrap up AEP strong. Appreciate it. It's the last day of AEP. Have you here in studio. So anyways, want to introduce Spencer Anderson, our guest today. Let's kind of start out with just kind of give him a rundown, Spencer.
Hey, before we get started, Spencer.
Yes.
I need to see sneaker check. What you got on there. Okay.
I stole my 16-year-old's lost and founds today, so thanks, Noah.
Yeah.
He wears my shoes all the time, so I stole his shoes today. Figured why
all
not?
Right, that's a different podcast.
So for all you sneakerhead underground, the insurance people, Spencer's always got some heat on the feet, so
Try
you know he's a cool guy.
It's my kids trying to make.
How many shoes do you?
Yeah, right.
This is a different podcast episode, but how many pairs of shoes do you have?
Oh man, we probably have 40 pairs of shoes. So if somebody were to come rob my house, don't come rob my house, you're probably walking away with a huge chunk of money. So we've got some expensive ones, we've got some cheap ones, but yeah, we like them way too much. I've got a problem. I'll admit it. I've got a problem. This is an probably like, all right, I have a problem. That's the first step.
Now that I disrupted the flow.
All right,
yeah, you're good.
Now we can move on.
Yeah, now we can move on. So tell everybody about kind of your background, because you've been in the industry for quite a while.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started in Medicare it was the summer of 2009, and we lived in Arizona. We had just barely filed a bankruptcy. Thank you, Property and Casualty Insurance Agency.
Sounds fun.
It was miserable. So I started out, that's kind of how I got licensed and into insurance. I started out with American Family Insurance, did that for a little under a year, transitioned over to doing an independent agency, worked specifically with a lot of contractors. The big building boom was going on in Arizona at the time. Wrote a ton of contractors on liability policies, and then 2008 came, everything crashed, people stopped building houses, all the contractors went out of business, and I had a ton of chargebacks and big costs. So we were definitely, it hit us pretty good. We filed a bankruptcy, and at the time I had a buddy that kept telling me, hey, you should come do this Medicare stuff. And at the time every time he explained it to me, I thought, man, that just sounds like a multi-level marketing scheme. Like, no, I don't want to do that. He said, really, you got to come do it. He said, specifically because you speak Spanish, we have one of our carriers that will give us leads, and you can go out and write business. You get paid on it pretty quick. It's great. And so I went out and did a couple of ride-alongs with him, and I started out my Medicare career basically just driving back and forth between Tucson, Yuma, and Mesa, where we lived, and just started writing Medicare business to the point where we were doing 30 or 40 a month. We got to our first AEP in 2009, and I went to Jamaica for a week. I had no idea what AEP was. I didn't know how to write a regular Medicare Advantage plan. It was all just the
D-SNP, right?
D-SNPs.
Writing a lot of duals?
All D-SNPs, yep. Fast forward, so a year past that, I think it was that summer, we were moving back up to Utah. We thought, well, we can do Medicare anywhere. And we went out to the United Healthcare office, and that is where I met one Dan Hardle in the parking lot of United Healthcare. He was walking out, and he was carrying books, and the guy I was with, we started talking to him, asking him questions, and found out that I think you might have been an ICA at the time.
Yep. That was like,
Were we still ICAs at that time?
It was like 2009, 2010. So chatted up a little bit with you, and we thought, oh, we're gonna come crush this market. No, these people don't know how to write duals. And we got up and realized, oh, this is a completely different world than what it was.
I was going to say that you were early on in the dual phase. Like everybody else didn't even know what those were. That wasn't even a sought after market, or everybody turned their nose up at that business, you know?
well, that was like a different market. So some of those markets for United Healthcare, they had community and state. They did a big reorg a couple of years ago, like 2 years ago, I think. But before that, community and state was like its own division. There was a couple markets, Arizona being one, that they were like really ahead on that D-SNP market. And you guys... And I would even argue that the community and state relationship was a lot more powerful than the United Health Group relationship.
Oh, for sure it was. Sure it was. When we started, it was branded Arizona Physicians. It was APIPA down there, and then they started obviously bringing everything underneath the United Healthcare umbrella. But yeah, that was kind of how we got into Medicare. Moved up here, started doing a little bit of Medicare. I thought for about half a second that I wanted to go do medical device sales. Did that a little bit, drove all over Wyoming way too much, and then thought, you know what, I'm going back to do Medicare. Went out to the United office again to try to talk to somebody to figure out how to get integrated in with them here. And at the time, one of the ICA manager was there, and he said, hey, we're hiring a broker manager. You should come apply. And I thought, no, I haven't worked for somebody since it's been 6 or 7 years. I'm good.
Are you a bad employee?
No, I'm not a bad employee. I just,
Yeah, we know he's not. Yeah.
there's just things that I run into. I think, oh, I could do that better than them. Anyway, so I ended up, long story short, I ended up working for United Healthcare for about 18 months as their broker sales manager here in the market in Utah. And we had a pretty good year. A couple of the other carriers kind of imploded that year. And so we wrote a lot of business. And then we got to the point, we got past AEP, and there were some things that happened with a gentleman I had recruited to come over to be the ICA manager. I brought him over from Zions Bank, and he was doing well. And they came to him and said, hey, your ICAs are going away. I don't know how many times they've bounced ICAs in and out. ICAs are going away. You can either move to Spokane and be a broker manager, or you need to go find a new job. And at that point, I had already kind of made the decision to leave just because of wanting to go back into agency. And so I said, how about this? Make him the broker sales manager, and I'm going to go back into agency. I'll still work very closely with you guys, but this wouldn't be fair to him. I had a book of business already. I had residual income coming in, and he would have been kind of dumped on his head. So he ended up being broker sales manager, was really good at it, and I went back into agency for a little while.
You did that for a few years, right? And then you actually took a job with a different carrier, right?
I did. So I was a broker. I spent way more time in Albuquerque than anybody should. I was back and forth.
You just offended some people. They have really good green chili verde there.
They do. They do have good green. You get it Christmas style. It's red and green chili. United Healthcare came to me. I had a relationship there. The VP, she was community and state, came to me and said, hey, we're only writing duals in New Mexico. We need somebody that will show up and actually write our regular Medicare Advantage plan. If we give you leads and provide you with the community sales meetings, will you go there and write for us during AEP? And so I did that for about 3 years in a row. And then coming into 2020, didn't really know what to expect with AEP. Got approached by one of the other carriers. Can I say names?
Yeah, of course. Sure. Yeah.
So I got approached. So I got
because we're going to talk about that.
Good. So Cigna came to me and said, hey, we're coming in brand new to your market. I knew a little bit of Cigna. I'd communicated with them in Arizona. Mm-hmm. They came to me and said, we're bringing in a new plan. We would love, we know that you've been in the market before. You've been in this business, this industry. You know most of the big agency owners in the state. Will you come help us? And I said, well, I don't know. I don't really know if I want to go back and work with another corporation. I'd been beat up pretty good when I was at United there. So I thought, well, no. But then the more I talked to them, and then they showed me their plan that they were rolling out, and they were kind of the pioneer with the big rebate.
Buybacks here in the state.
Buybacks here in the state of Utah.
And they were strong in Arizona and some of the other markets.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, their legacy markets, that home legacy would be Arizona, Texas, and Florida.
Yeah,
right?
very, very good in those markets. The plan design was going to be amazing.
It was amazing.
They didn't, the expectations weren't super high. They just, because it was rolled out so late, I really didn't start working for them until it was, I think, the first part of August. And so it was pretty late in the game. There weren't very high expectations, but they knew that I had relationships. And so I took the job, and I think one of the first telephone calls I made was calling Agent Boost, talking to Dan. I'd known Dan for a long time, knew that you guys could move the needle with agents and production, started communicating with you guys. We did great that AEP. I worked for Cigna for about 2.5 years, and then June of this last year, we kind of pulled the ripcord and left, went back out into agency.
Yeah, so talk to me about that a little bit more. I cringe when you talk about us writing that Cigna business. It didn't pan out particularly well for us. But talk about...
We wrote a lot of it, right? We moved the needle.
You guys definitely moved the needle.
Yeah, just, unfortunately, market circumstances kind of changed and shifted a little bit the last year.
Yeah, so talk to me about the decision-making process for you to go from... Because there's a lot of people listening who are in a secure job.
Yes.
It's very comfortable. Maybe they have golden handcuffs or whatever it may be. And what was the decision-making process for you to go, okay, I'm going to give up my cushy salary, my... benefits, my XYZ to kind of just start my own agency?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the 2.5 years that I was with Cigna, I was probably approached by no less than 6 different companies in whether they were in the Medicare industry or health insurance or wherever, trying to hire me. Mm-hmm. And I always tell everybody, I'll talk to anybody once. I'll never just flat say no. I'll talk to them, see what the opportunity is, see if it's a fit. If it's not a fit for me, maybe I can refer somebody to them. And so I just kept telling them, you know what, if I do leave Cigna, because I really liked the people I worked with, I had great managers, loved all the people I worked with here locally. I just told them, if I leave Cigna, I'm going back into agency. Mm-hmm. And when I had started at Cigna, we had already built up. We had a small-ish agency, handful, maybe 4 or 5 agents at the time, and kind of the deal with them was, we need you to if your wife will get licensed, then you can put the agency in her name, and that way everything's fine and above board. And so my wife did get licensed at the time. She started producing, writing some business, but we had a bunch of new agents. Kind of our niche agent right now is younger Spanish speakers is really what we're focused on. We really want to tap into that Hispanic market. And so we had all of these new guys, and my wife was very good at the relationship side of it with members, sitting down with them, understanding their needs. I tell everybody, I think females are better at this job, being an agent, than dudes anyway, just because they're
over the phone,
way more empathetic. They're just, I feel like they're better. So she did great with that, but she didn't love the back end administration side of it, or recruiting or training. And so after AEP last year was kind of a train wreck. We didn't do all that well with the product here locally. We started having conversations, and we knew that I was going to leave. I probably made that decision in January or February of last year. And then we just kind of started weighing all of the opportunities, looking at different agencies, looking at opportunities within those agencies, and just trying to figure out where's the best fit for us, where are we going to be able to grow, but also be able to have the back end support to take care of all of the contracting, take care of trainings, take care of figuring out the technology, being able to do all of that stuff so that I could just go recruit and train and be out with the agents, helping them grow.
Good. I really appreciate that. And the one thing I would add to this, I think when you were at Cigna for all those years, you were pretty communicative with leadership on like, hey, here's what's at. You were very transparent with your goals and what you were planning to do, right? Which I respect. The other thing I've noticed is I would just call this, well, we're discussing it anyway in the podcast, there's a lot of FMOs. Would you say that when you're working for one of those big national carriers, you're hit up frequently by other carriers, employers? It's almost like you're in a spotlight and you're probably solicited often, correct?
Yes, you do get solicited a lot. A lot of the big agencies understand that there are relationships and dollars,
right,
that go back and forth between carriers and FMOs, and so they will try to leverage those relationships to try to bring more dollars into the FMO. And you see it a lot in the industry where people will go directly from the carrier to
agency. See, and that's what I wanted to bring up to you. I respect you. You didn't do that, and I actually very much respect that. I've seen this where there's FMOs out there, and there's people out there working for carriers, and they have in their mind, I'm leaving here in a year. I'm going to go work for some FMO, and then when I leave, I'm going to go stir the pot in the market and go leverage my relationships that I've built while I was on payroll, and go leverage these 3,000 broker relationships and try to get them to move FMOs, disrupt their business. It's a model that I don't like, candidly, and we see it very prevalently in the industry, and I hate it.
Yeah. One other thing that, because Dan and I actually had this experience today where this Medicare, even though it's a tremendous industry with financial opportunity, it's actually really small and niche, and you run into people all the time through different FMO partners. Carriers are always hiring. It's very incestuous that way where So if you are out there and you're working for a carrier, you're working for another FMO, it's very important for you to operate with integrity and not burn any bridges, because, we see it often where people have just kind of moved from carrier to carrier, and once you learn,
or they burn an FMO to another FMO or whatever.
Correct. Or once you learn that niche, you're obviously have a valuable skill set that is valuable to other FMOs and other carrier partners. And we even just had a thing today where we got on a Zoom call with something that was pretty unrelated. And Dan's like, hey, I know you. I've worked with you for years, and it was a good segue where it was, if we would have ever operated in bad faith, or if that gentleman had, it wouldn't have been.
Yeah, but also candidly to that point, we were able to have that call and set it up, and we're potentially going to do business.
Correct.
Because they know me as the principal too, and that, we have that relationship, and they know we're not going to burn.
Yeah, exactly. So what we're saying is you did it a really, really great way. You handled that kind of precarious situation potentially very well.
And that's something. So we're up to, I think we have about 12 agents working with us now. And one of the things I tell agents day one is never as much as you're going to want to, and people are going to wrong you in this business at some point, if you're around long enough, never burn a bridge, because you never know. You may light that bridge on fire, walk away from it, and 2 years later, that person might be your rep for a carrier, or they may have something that you need to work with them on. And it's
to that point, we actually offered you a job.
Yeah.
And
I remember that was that was January of I think 22.
And if it would have gone sour one way or the other, it could have potentially damaged your relationship there. But
And one of the things you mentioned too, I'll give my shout out to Jelly Roll, who people know. I love Jelly Roll and his music, his best
face tats.
He's awesome. I love Jelly Roll. But he always says, like, the rear view mirror is smaller than the windshield for a reason, right? Like, look forward. That's one thing too that you mentioned is, like, we see agency owners and agents getting so caught up in something, minutia or something from the past, from a year ago or 3 years ago, that they're not focused on growing the business and progressing and moving forward.
Yeah, that definitely happens a lot. And you do get a lot of agents and agency owners that they don't want to worry. They might have lost an agent to somebody, and they're so worried about that agent leaving or that one piece of business that walked out the door that they're not focused on growing or moving forward or just moving forward. Just let it go and go. There's so much business to be written. For you to sit and stew about one agent or an application that left you, it's just a waste of your time and energy.
Well, and the amount of people in this industry are finite, right? And we just had an experience this week where we brought on an agent that we'd been working with for 5 years. Dan first met with him in Dallas 5 years ago.
That's true.
And just kind of had been in our funnel. And 5 years later, this guy finally was like, hey, I thought I should have done it then. And now, but if we had had some sort of bad break off point or a souring of the relationship, that wouldn't be possible, So it's always best, like you said, to operate with the, future in mind.
Yeah, you definitely do not want to ever burn those bridges. It's like I said, there's so much opportunity in business for everybody that you just go focus on your thing, go grow your thing. You'll be good.
So I guess the theme before we move on is just be conscientious about, if you're going to make a move out there and you're listening, make sure that you do it in the right way. That's the takeaway.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. And we've seen it a lot in this business too, where agents will contract shop and it ends up just being a giant mess. If you're bouncing from agency or FMO to FMO because, well, this FMO said they were going to give me, $25 more towards marketing or whatever, it ends up just eating up all of your time and energy.
So since you went there already, we deal with this a lot.
Yes.
And I was just going to ask you, what was your decision-making process like when you said, hey, I've got maybe 20 different FMOs or agencies that are on my radar that I could potentially do business with. What were the 3 or 4 key things that were decision makers for you in saying, this is who I need to align with? Because I have thoughts of my own that I want to share.
Yeah, so we've always had pretty good agency partners, to be honest with you. I've had no problem with anybody we've ever worked with. There are good agency partners, but I think when I declined, when we had sat down and looked at maybe the job a year ago, and I had decided, no, I don't think that's the right fit for either one of us. I had conversations with my wife, and I've got notes in my journal like, hey, said no to Dan and Agent Boost for this job, but I think we are going to work with them in the future in some sort of capacity. And so as we sat down earlier this year and went through and we were trying to figure out, okay, where are we going to move our contracts to? What does this look like? What is the process? What are the pros and cons? The big ones for us, relationships, right? I tell people all the time, if Dan doesn't know them, they're not in the Medicare business.
Probably true.
It's true. And so being able to leverage your relationships for our growth, you know everybody at all the carriers, you will go read the white papers that I have no interest in ever reading. And if there's pertinent information that we need, you're going to let us know. And so that was one of the big things, is the ability to be able to partner up with your relationships. The technology was a big deal for us. We were coming from a place where there was okay technology, but if I ever had a question, I didn't know who I was talking to. Whereas here you've got in-house tech people, in-house contracting people that are super quick, super responsive. We have so many questions because we did have to move all of our contracts over here. It was a little bit of a chore, but they were so good at facilitating that whole process that it made it way easier than I thought it was going to be.
That's good to hear. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes.
It was like kind of positive reviews for our contracting
Absolutely.
staff members. But what I would say too, what I observe is I look at the macro picture, like the broader picture and strategy and just aligning ease of doing business. One thing that I've seen is we talk to agency owners who want to shop every individual contract. And so like let's just say they're supporting 10 agents or 50 or 100 agents. They want to go shop and say, okay, I'm going to put my Molina contract with the one that gives me the top dollar for this. I'm going to put my United with the FMO that gives me the top contract for this. And my Humana is going to go over here. And we talk to agencies where their contract is spread with 5 FMOs. And then I think about the experience for the agent. And then that agent, who do they go to for support? Like, okay, who's going to train me on this particular thing? And then who do I go to ask for marketing dollars, or let's just say support, or, okay, what is this person doing for me? Am I getting leads, and who is facilitating that? And it just for me seems like that's not effective at all in any way, shape, or form to have 5 or 6 or 10 relationships with other people. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Even if it's a couple dollars one way or the other on a contract level, it's so much easier to, especially for my newer agents, to say, go plug it into Sunfire. All of our contracts are there. If it's in there, you're good to go. Rather than them having to go and try to piece together some sort of proposal to take to one of their seniors and say, well, I've got 4 different quoting systems I'm looking at. I think this one's accurate. I don't know why this one's not in Sunfire. I got to figure out how to get you a scope of appointment. This carrier may not have great technology. And so for us, it was worth, even if there were a couple dollars with other contracts that we maybe could have gotten a little more with other FMOs, just for the ease of business and training, and just the uniformity of having just one platform, one agency, one FMO that they're getting emails from, one AEP kickoff, not 7 different kickoffs. It just, the uniformity, especially for new agents, because there's so much they're learning and trying to absorb anyway, that it just makes their lives easier, which makes my life easier, because there's a lot less phone calls and text messages I'm worried about, because they already know what they're doing. Or if they need to talk to one of the staff, they've got it handled here.
Yeah, and it's transparent for the brokers too. And
I think too, you're and maybe you want to speak to this, but you're also doing products. Your bread and butter's been Medicare, and you have a lot of experience in Medicare, but you're also kind of diving headfirst, like of others, into ACA and some of the other products. And I think, at least, for us, there's not a lot of our competitors that know both sides of the house, so to say, or they could facilitate contracts on both. So speak to that.
Yeah, that's been huge for us. When we started getting everything going and we kind of started looking at ACA business, the Obamacare plans, I've always kind of done those just by default. I had contracts in 4 different places for those plans, just because of when it first rolled out, there was no big FMO that you could go get your contracts through. Right. And so I had a little bit of that business and just kind of always thought, no, I'm a Medicare guy. I don't do that. And then I think Dan and I think we were having a conversation maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and you just kept saying, you've got to look at this ACA stuff. We're getting the contract set up. You need to look at it. And one of our new agents that we brought over he's an ACA wizard. He's written so much of that business here locally that it just made sense for us to be able to help him as he transitioned over from being a navigator to being an agent, to be able to have all of that stuff in-house. And I think the amount of ACA we'll write, it's something where it could surpass Medicare here in the next couple of years,
could be
which I'm okay with.
2 or 3 to every one of Medicare.
And it's funny, I still have a lot of friends that are agency owners or agents, and I asked them, I said, what are you guys doing for your ACA? We just refer it to a guy. Okay, and then what? He'll maybe split commissions with us. I don't really know. I don't do ACA.
Yeah.
And I just tell them, like, you guys, you've got to look at this now, especially if you're writing business in other states. There's so much business, and the carriers, they'll spend, and it pays well now. And you'll have an ACA household with 4 or 5 or 6 people in that household. You're going to make more residual off of that than you do a husband and wife Medicare plan each month.
Right. And for those listening, I will say we know that with Medicare products, depending on if it's done over the phone, depending on the carrier, there's other things that go into it, but your LTV, or your lifetime value of a policy for Medicare, is going to be anywhere from 3.5 years to 6 years. Again, depending on, is it a face-to-face relationship or over the phone, and what carrier, and there's some other things that go into it. But on ACA, yes, it pays more, but we also tell people in caution that the persistency or the life cycle of that plan is on average going to be about 18 months. So it's not going to stick. with marketplace insurance, people do change. They get a job, then they get health benefits through work, or, it is a little bit more fickle where they'll, drop plans. But nonetheless, it's very easy to go write that business. And you can go write 5 or 10 for the amount of work it takes to go to one Medicare plan.
So, yeah, you just kind of triggered something in my brain. So last AEP, so I was still with Cigna, but I had my wife and some other agents producing. We wrote business in Utah and a little bit up in Wyoming. That was it. And then as we started with over here with Agent Boost, we've leveraged those relationships for other states. Arizona has been really good for us for ACA and some Medicare. Texas has been really good. So I absolutely love the health insurance business. I've got multiple family members in it. And just kind of give you an example. So we had some leads that you guys provided for us. And my oldest son, he's 22. He's a college student. Medicare and ACA is the greatest part-time college gig ever for a college student. So he's got time right now. He knows it's open enrollment. He was calling through some of those ACA leads that we had permission to call. And a lady answered the phone and she said, yeah, I was on Aetna. This is down in Houston, Texas. He never would have talked to this lady.
Right.
She said, something happened. We got booted off. We don't have coverage anymore. Can you help us? Mom, 2 sons. Cool. And then he started looking at it, and there was a dad in the household too. And he said, well, why does he not show up as someone that needs insurance? She's like, oh, he has Medicare. And so then the kind of light bulb went off in Caden's head, and he was like, oh, well, what does he have? I don't know, some plan. He doesn't really like it.
Have him call me so it's an inbound call so I can get him told.
So he was able to reach. So he wrote the mom and the 2 kids with Aetna, and if I remember right, I think they're $22 or $25 per member per month. Mm-hmm. And then he wrote a Devoted health plan, which Devoted is not even here in Utah. We never would have had that contract. And so he's stoked because he just wrote a whole household, and he has the technology to be able to do it. He's got the leads to be able to do it. It's things that never would have happened before, but it's just that the relationship and the looking outside of, I only do Medicare in Utah. Well, that's kind of...
And those households stick, right?
That's going to be... Scope.
Yeah, that's going to be a client.
It will still stick
forever. You guys have written a couple hundred just in the last few weeks, right?
Yeah. We've written a bunch of ACA business. I think I think myself, I think I've written in the last month probably over 100 households.
Yeah, just personally with that.
Personally, and then we've got one of our other agents, Luis, is writing a ton of it. I know he's been out just crushing it. He just absolutely crushes the Hispanic market here in Salt.
It's just one of those things for people listening, though. We want them to understand that, understand Spencer's background, though. He's been around doing this for years and years and years. So I would say you're more dynamic than a lot of people. And I also, caution people when they're jumping in, kind of baby steps. Learn a certain product line, learn your market, become proficient, become good at it first. One thing that we also caution people about is getting into every single line of business with every single carrier right off the bat, and you need 30 contracts, and you're going to do everything.
Jack of all trades, master of none.
At all of it, and it never ends well. So if you're listening, though, I just caution that you're a higher IQ, higher caliber than a lot of people out there, and you have a lot of industry experience first to kind of be dynamic.
Well, and honestly, my secret is to know what I don't know, and then just find people that do. So, for example, before we sat down and picked states where we wanted to focus and write some ACA business, I talked to you, I talked to Mike, I talked to Corey, who's over all the ACA stuff, and said, give me the markets where it looks like there's a ton of opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
And then we specifically went and grabbed those licenses and have focused on those markets. And it's been really good. And there's good plans there. There's good carrier partners there. And
and we actually evaluate too, just so we know, how much do licenses cost in certain states? Are they FFM? Are they private exchanges?
That was the big thing.
It's, it's knowing hey, let's put together a 5 or 10 state portfolio so that you can market those and have a good cost analysis and return for you. So those are the things we look at.
Hopefully I get her age right. My 70-year-old mother-in-law works with us. She's one of our agents.
She's going to hear this podcast.
She will. She writes Medicare. If she can figure out and learn how to do ACA business, she's like, I don't know if I want to do it. And then we sat down, walked her through what it is. She does a lot of retail. She gets people asking questions all the time. I just told her, I said, look, these people are asking you these questions anyway. You might as well just be their agent.
Yeah. Right.
And a lot of the times Medicare agents are so in the mindset of, it's so highly regulated because Medicare is, and there's so many rules and scope of appointment. ACA is night and day different than that. There are just so many more opportunities with things you can do with marketing and talking to people and approaching people that if she can do it and she's done awesome with it, she's writing people, she loves it now. there's no excuse for somebody younger that maybe does have a little bit better grasp of technology not to jump in and add it to their portfolio. It's just dollars you're sending out the back door. And it's crazy to me that there are gigantic FMOs and NMAs and big, huge corporations, and they still are just like, no, we just do Medicare.
Well, it's just not their line of business, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think it's important too, like Dan said, a lot of our agents, when they hear these podcasts or other agents, they get, I'm like this too, shiny object syndrome, right? Where it's always
For sure.
the next greatest thing, or like, I don't want to, there's a dollar to be made. I want to make that dollar. I don't want to miss out on it. But I think what Dan said is wise, where get that base level experience in one of these products, start adding it on. We see a lot of agents come on all the time now where they want to be all things to all people in all areas. And it's like, there's this amount of information to learn. And right now you only know this. It does not make sense for you to sell multiple products in multiple states with multiple carriers. Let's give you some, let's raise you up in a sustainable way, you know, and you're probably doing that with your agents too.
Yeah. So that's one of the conversations we also have with our agents is we'll tell them like, look, Utah's a little bit different where there are only a handful of carriers, but you can go into a state like Arizona or Texas, there might be 30 Medicare plans there. And I just tell them we don't need all of them. Let's get, you know, the 2 or 3 national carriers that we know we've got good relationships with, that we know they have good product, they're stable. Let's learn that one first, or those handful, and grow with them. And then if for some reason some of these other smaller carriers are worth adding, we'll add those. But I don't need them trying to learn 7 different carriers when 95% of the people are going to be on 2 plans anyway.
And you know what we do as an agency? We pull the CMS data and go, okay, there's 17 MA companies there, and yet these 6 comprise 94% of the business. Well, let's work with these 6 and not worry about the other 11, because that's going to cover 90-something% of the enrollments you're going to do. Are you going to be one of the agents that writes one of the 100 applications out there for this other carrier? Probably not. So don't worry about it.
That's good advice, Spencer, because I get agents all the time that will be like, I can't get started selling until I have the local one-off carrier that just emerged and started, and until I'm certified with that one carrier in that one county of that one state that I'm probably never going to sell business in, I can't be effective.
Or it's, I have 9 contract requests into you guys in process, but I'm only active with 6 of them. So I'm going to sit on my hands for another 2 months until I'm active. Yeah. It's like, no, just be effective with what you can, get going and start moving forward.
That is, you talked about contract, maybe we can transition to that. I think you have a question for me on contract.
Well, I was going to ask you, like, when you started your agency and now you have 6 months under your belt?
Yes.
So you're 6 months in. What was an unforeseen challenge or difficulty maybe that you didn't anticipate coming into this?
The contracting, I think, is the biggest pain point. Luckily, your team is very good at it, but you have to understand, and we had set aside, we had a certain amount of money we had set aside. We had budgeted and kind of forecasted what we were going to need, because we knew starting in June, even if our agents or if I'm out producing, they're not very big commissions that you're getting paid from the carriers. And so we kind of had to say, okay, let's just understand for the next probably 90 to 120 days, there's going to be a lot of paperwork, a lot of contracting. There's going to be a lot of modules and trainings that we have to do. So I would say the contracting, even though I knew it was going to take time, I think the contracting took longer than I thought, just because you're dealing with carriers, you're dealing with carrier people, contracting people going on vacation. You're dealing with agents getting links and never clicking on them.
Yep.
And then having to go back to your contracting team and say, hey, this person needs this contract. Well, we sent him the link 45 days ago. It's like, oh, so that's been the thing. I think it's been the biggest surprise to me was how long the contracting process actually takes. And so for me, I look back and obviously hindsight's 2020. I would have jumped in February if I had known what it was going to, the 90 days, the ramp up to it, we would have jumped and had everything done before you do start kind of rolling into some of those carrier blackouts. I mean, we've got one contract left that's just still sitting there that January 1st we'll be able to move it.
Right.
But I would have started earlier. That would be my thing. If you're going to do it, start early in the year, avoid all of the blackouts, avoid having to get, maybe you've got contracts stuck somewhere where you don't even know where it is. Jump in and do it early so that everything's ready to go, so that as AHIP rolls out, you're all ready to go. You're not still wondering, okay, let's see, my United's over here, my Humana's over there. Which one's coming over? Where do I do my AHIP? How do I? It's just all in-house.
Yeah, and I would say the other thing, we did an episode on releases, but I just would reinforce what we already did on a whole episode. Just plan on not getting a release. I mean, we deal with 1,000 agents a year that are, onboarding through us, and it's just, you don't get a release. I don't care. They're like, oh no, I know somebody. They're cool. That person, I've known him for 3 years. They're going to give me a release. Guess what? You don't get a release.
You're not, or they may be willing to, but the upline above them and the upline above them, and then
the upline, that's the third upline above them.
So that's what we ran into. Is we had our direct upline was very understanding, very good dudes. They said, yeah, we totally understand. We want you guys to do what's best for you. You have our blessing. Well, then it bumps up to the next level, and it's like, where are you guys moving your contracts to? No release. Like,
yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
so just if you're listening, plan on that.
All right. And you're going to be, like with like a United contract, it was 90 days and we just didn't write any. We're like, cool, we'll just go write other carriers while we're waiting.
Right.
Or and every carrier is different. I think it is a little bit easier now, but the trick, I think the very first thing when I talked to you and I was like, yeah, let's do this. You said, submit intents right now, even though they're telling you you're released, you need to submit intents so that number one, it locks your agents with you. And number two, it starts that clock.
Well, it starts the conversation of saying, like, I'm not just blowing smoke, like, hey, I'm leaving. So, like, I'm out the door. I've already made this business decision. This is what's happening. And can you do me at least one solid and just give me a release, because it will make it easier for me to do this with my business. And this is happening one way or the other. Do you want me to do business with somebody else and have a bad impression, lasting impression and bad taste in my mouth?
Yeah.
Or can you just, do me a solid? And, so we always coach and try to train people to do that.
And I think, honestly, what we've seen, a lot of these people that used to be able to make these decisions that were the FMOs with the carriers who people had contracts with, they're not the decision makers anymore. A lot of them have sold out to some of these big corporations. They're not the decision maker anymore that can say yes or no on a release, or yes or no on co-op dollars or marketing dollars. They're all employees.
Well, it's that, and there's just 3 or 4 or 5 people involved in the decision-making process now, not like one. So
correct. And you asked too a couple minutes ago, what were some of the things that maybe led you over here to Agent Boost? And that was one of the things. There's a couple of really big entities that have kind of taken over the industry. Everybody knows who they are. I wanted to be able to have a direct line of contact and be able to walk into my principal's office. So your office. So being able to say, hey, if there's ever anything going on, the dude who's going to talk to the carrier, there's not levels between them. He's 30 minutes down the road from me. I've got his cell phone. I can call and talk to him. And he's not going to have to say, well, let me go see if I can get permission from mom and dad over here for you to be able to do this. So that was a huge selling point for us with Agent Boost was and I don't know everybody in the industry, but I feel like you guys are one of the last still kind of independent agencies out there.
Outliers
that still has top line contracts with everybody, but you're not attached to one of these giant corporations that's dictating what you guys do, where you spend your money, how which software you use, and everything. You guys are still making those decisions locally, which was a big selling point for us.
Which is true. So let's switch gears a little bit to say what was actually easier than you thought it would be, because we know challenges, I think, are usually contracting in that timeline, that runway, the financials, like you talked about, like knowing that it's going to be tough and look, I would just bring this out here too to the attention of people listening. My strategy when I started an agency years and years and years ago, I kept producing for 3 years as well. Even while I was being an agency owner, I lived on my personal production income, and all the money that the agency was generating, I left it and reinvested that. And I didn't even take out a cent of divs or earnings for 3 years, because that's what was funding starting the agency, which I think is still a very effective strategy for people out there.
I think so. And I did produce this year, and I wrote a decent chunk of Medicare business because of that. And ideally, as an agency owner, eventually you have enough agents that you're working with the agents, you're not out producing. You've duplicated yourself, you're growing, you're investing in them. And that's one of the things too that was attractive to us about Agent Boost is you and Mike aren't out producing. You're not competing against me for business. And there are other agency principals out there that are they're out there hustling just like their agents. And I think, what are you doing? You've got a huge amount of agents that are out producing for you. Go help them grow, duplicate yourself, and move on. Don't get so hung up on, well, that's an application I could go right. If there's lots of applications I could go right, but if my agents aren't writing it and growing, they're gonna leave me.
Well, they just don't understand the relationship like distribution and at scale and how to scale the business and kind of go, hey, at some point, a lot of nickels is more than $1. And if I can go scale this and support people to have a higher sales volume, then in the long run, it's going to benefit everybody more than just me being short-sighted to go get that application.
Yeah, right. that is definitely one of the things. But back to your question, some of the easier things, it was refreshing for us to come over and have technology that I feel like is best in the industry between Sunfire and the CRM that we use, but then also having access to Nico, your tech guy, just to be able to text him and say, hey, I don't know how to do this, and getting a video emailed to me. Click, click, click. Here's what you do. Done.
Huh. Yeah. It's funny you bring that up because he's going to be on the next podcast episode talking about technology.
That's right.
And it's different because we tell everybody having a supported CRM and tools and technology versus just, hey, we have cool stuff. Here you go. Figure it out.
Yeah.
It's very different.
Pay us money for it. Yeah.
Yeah, but like it's very different when you're like, oh no, I have actual resource that I can send my flat sheet of data to, and they can upload it and do the work.
And walk
that through.
That was one of the easiest things for us, was downloading, pulling all of our book of business from the different carriers, putting them all on a spreadsheet, sending it over to Nico, and Nico, 20 minutes later saying, cool, they're all in there. Yeah, they're all in the CRM. So now my retention's going to go up. My marketing, my pre-AEP marketing to all of my members was so much easier than it's ever been.
Good. I'd love to hear that. And I love to hear people that are adopting to the technology because we spend a lot of time, effort, money into it for compliance, for efficiency, for value to bring to people. And then when we sit here and bang everybody over the head and say, please use these tools, please use them, and we get a low adoption rate, it's super frustrating, especially when you hear agents and agency owners coming to you saying like, hey, I'm really struggling with this. Do you have any ideas or tips for me on this? I'm like, yes. Use our platforms that we've been telling you to use forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish that the CRM had been around 14 years ago. I mean, we wrote hundreds of people in Arizona that I was so new and dumb and didn't have really any direction. Who knows where those people ended up? Like, I never sent them a thank you card.
The filing cabinet or the
paper application stacked somewhere, shredded. It makes sense. And people are way more tech savvy now too. And so them getting a text message from their agent saying, hey, your enrollment's processed, your cards are on the way, or happy birthday, I think that goes a long ways to growing an agency.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this now. So obviously structure-wise, like we always tell people, like we're more back of the house. Like when it comes to an agency owner, like somebody who's a GA or an MGA or whatever that looks like, whatever level somebody's at as an agency owner, we're like back of the house providing technology support, training, all these other things. What do you do as like a mid to smaller size agency to build value in, hey, Spencer is bringing value to me if I'm an agent perspective, and I'm going, I want to align with an agency. How are you building in that value?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one of the things that we really have focused on is because I think in one of the prior podcasts you said you've either got time or money. Mm-hmm. So for right now, for me with my agents, it's time. And so it's going out with them. And that's the thing we kind of pitch to new agents too is, hey, we'll teach you how to do everything. Past that, it's up to you. But I will go out and spend time. We'll go out and walk into businesses or go in and try to talk to housing facilities, meeting influencers, people that are interacting with this Medicare population. That's one of the things I feel like we're really good at, is helping agents find and build those relationships and keep those relationships. And then also being able to being a resource for them.
You put up a brick and mortar too, didn't you?
We did, yeah. We've got an office.
That's what I was going to ask you about.
We did do an office, and it's funny because I live about probably 20 minutes away from the office, and a lot of what I had been doing is not anywhere close to the office. So I hadn't even been in there in probably about 2.5 weeks. And I texted my guy Luis. I'm like, hey, how's the office? He's like, good. I'm here every day. And he's in there running appointments. And so that was one of the things we wanted to make sure agents had a place where they could go sit down, they could meet people, they could run appointments. I had one of my other agents call me. He was at the office. I said, well, do you have appointments? He's like, no, I come here because I get more done if I'm here at the office than if I try to work from home.
Right.
And I see that with a lot of people that got stuck in this work from home stuff. It's great. It's cool. Your dog's glad that you're home, but you will get way more done if you're in an office setting or you're around other people who are producing and being busy and our success.
Yeah.
Oh, you sound like me.
Yeah, we're 100% on board with that. The other thing too that we've talked about on the podcast before is there's almost been post-COVID this boomerang effect and a reset. And we were just talking about this at lunch actually, where almost everybody's back in office. Things are back almost 100% to normal the way they were pre-COVID. And I feel like there's a big opportunity of people, especially with Medicare beneficiaries, where they're more willing. They've seen so many spammy ads. They're so confused. There's so much information and bad. I don't want to use the de-information word. It just always triggers me, but there's wrong information out there, right?
Information.
Yeah, there's wrong information out there that seniors are just going, I just want to go down to my local Main Street guy where I can walk in and sit down and talk to a human being. I don't want to talk to a chatbot. I don't want to talk to an AI person. I want to go talk to a real human, and I want to know that Luis is my guy or Spencer is my guy, and they're in my community and they're a human being.
Yeah, so that was kind of, I mean, we opened up we've got the office, and it's an expense, but it's an expense that when we look at it, it was super necessary for what we were targeting and for the population we were targeting and the area where we wanted to be. It's, you know, when we're specifically focused very heavily on the Hispanic market for us here in Salt Lake, there are a lot of times where they're not going to call one of those. They're not watching Fox or CNN or whatever.
They're not going to call Joe
Did
Namath's ad.
you get that drug dealer his health insurance yet?
No, he hasn't been back. We can chat about that after. New York was his name. We specifically, we picked kind of a lower income area just because we do a lot with duals. We do a lot with the LIS Part D extra help people. And we wanted to be that location.
But I would jump in and say, though, like, that's admirable, though. And I actually love to hear that because there's definitely, I think we talk about, like, the CMS call letter and CMS's intentions and all this stuff, though. And there's, like, this big part of our population that really is, like we say, underserved. But they don't know how to navigate the system well. They don't know how to even get the help that they need. And, like, these kind of models and structures that are out there are really necessary for the population.
Absolutely. And the office has been great. It's one of those things where I write that check every month and I think, man, is this worth it? But then, like, yesterday I went in and I walk in and my guy's sitting there helping this Hispanic husband and wife. They've never been on Medicare before. They had no idea what they had. He gets them set up. They're almost in tears because now they've got dental insurance and their prescriptions are going to be covered better and they've got a set copay to go to the doctor. That's the stuff that I love to see, is the agents taking advantage of that, but then being a resource in the community to the point where one of our things on our kind of our vision board for next year is we're going to start running a food bank out of that office. We've got some really cool connections of some people that are pretty big time companies here in the state that have already said, let us know as soon as you're ready to go. We're happy to donate. We've got things we can help with. So we're getting through the enrollment period, kind of navigating that, and then we're going to have a food bank we run a couple days a week because we do have extra space there where people can feel comfortable coming in and getting, there's a little bit of food they can get with them. But then
you're not going to use it as an inducement for enrollment, are you?
Not at all. No. We're just a food bank, and then that's it.
So you already kind of went there, like you talked about your vision board. So talk to me about what is Elite, like what's your agency going to look like a year from now, and what do you want it to look like 5 years from now?
Yeah, so within the next year, we want to have that food bank up and going. We've got some other events that we want to sponsor. We've got, like I said, I think we're at about 12 agents right now is our number. I would like to double that this year through recruiting, whether that's here locally or in some of the other states. We do have, we've got an agent that just barely got licensed last week. We had to tell her, hey, you're a little late in the game, but let's at least maybe try to do some ACA stuff right now. So we're going to do recruiting. We've got to figure out which markets, if it's, the Texas, Arizonas, or if it's specifically Utah. We're going to kind of lean on you guys for some of the recruiting knowledge. You guys are very good at that. And then 5 years from now, I would love to have, 50, 60, 70 agents, because I don't want to just contract agents to contract agents.
Producing agents.
I want good, high producing agents where it's like, yeah, you've got 75 agents and your average applications for you're 50, 60 application average per agent, which I know is high, but I think if we can be a little bit more picky, we're not just going to contract to contract, but that's kind of some of the stuff that we're looking at. And then really growing the ACA side of it as well, and getting agents plugged in there, and then starting to recruit and work with the agents and agencies on that side as well.
Perfect. Good. It's a great vision. Totally doable, and we believe in you. I think we're excited to see your growth, and and kind of how we can help support and facilitate you, create partnership going forward.
Yeah. So to wrap up, how much are you like percentage to goal of what like this year in just saying, hey, I'm starting the agency. Here's what I want to accomplish. What percentage of goal are you at like right now?
So I had a number. So when we left in June, I wrote a number down in my book, and I said by the end of June of 2024, I want my agency to have written this many pieces of, and I didn't even write ACA, which was short-sighted, just Medicare business.
Yeah.
And as of right now, we're at about 70% of that number.
Wow.
Great.
So yeah, I mean, you have 6 more months to do that.
OEP.
Trending.
We're trending ahead, which is awesome. You know, some of the products, I can't talk enough about that exclusive United Healthcare product that you all have that contract with. That has been amazing for us, to the point where my mom and dad both qualify for it. They're both, my dad is on it, my mom is going on it. It's a game changer of a plan for people when they know that there's a certain level of care that they can get. And especially if we've had a lot of people come off of supplements this year and move over to that plan. So I mean, you guys already know that, but any agent out there that doesn't have access to that, you're losing out on so many opportunities and so many pieces of business that it doesn't make sense to, if you're somewhere where they're not out, your agency or FMO's not out looking out what's best for the agents and agencies and looking at new contracts and new partnerships and trying to figure out, you know, what's the best thing that we have to be able to offer people, you're losing money. But not even that, you're not serving your members. There are so many of our members that we've helped with that plan where they were, you know, husband and wife paying $400, $500, $600 a month for a supplement. They're low income. And now that's basically gone away. They've got a small premium. They've got a small max out of pocket, and the plan is just amazing. So that's been a huge game changer for us.
Good. Well, we're close to time, so I want to wrap up. Yeah. At least I want to give you a plug in the sense that I think you're doing it right in a lot of ways, that you're investing in your business. You're actually spending money on a brick and mortar.
Yes.
You're investing the money. You're also helping your agents buy leads, which I've actually seen you spend money investing in leads.
Yes.
You're also spending the time, which, look, we have agents all the time. I don't have the ability in my role and the structure to go take somebody, hold their hand, take them to appointment, train them, show them how to run the appointment. I did that for a lot of years. I don't have that ability to do it anymore.
Yeah.
But you're doing that with time, with hand-holding, with training, with the money investment. So I think that you're doing it right for those listening. So if you're in the Utah marketplace and you need someone to align with, hit up Spencer. He's a great partner that will literally hold your hand and teach you the business.
Walk you through it. The last thing I have, so you guys know I like to ski way too much in the winter time. And it kind of used to be a tradition for us every year. We'd go and see the Warren Miller movies.
Yeah.
And Warren Miller has it's my favorite quote that he has. He just says, if you don't do it this year, you'll just be 1 year older when you do. Well, that was kind of our decision when I thought, you know what, I could stay with this company and be fine and make a decent living, but I'm going to get 5-6 years down the road and go, man, I should have gone back. I should have gone back into agency 5 years ago. And so that was one of the things we looked at. We just said, let's go. And I would recommend anybody, if you're looking, or if you're thinking of making the jump, or you're looking for new alignment with agencies, for sure they need to have at least have a conversation with you guys.
Cool.
Absolutely. It's been really good for us.
Thanks, Spencer. We didn't mean this to be a solicited plug for sure, but we definitely appreciate that. And you're like Dan said, you're doing it right.
Yep.
It's been good. We love the business to the point where we've got 4 or 5 family members that are in it now, just because it is such a great opportunity to help people, but then to make a great living as well.
Yeah, we'll circle up, I'm sure, in another year and have you back on and say, like, hey, touch point, where you at?
And I'm a little grateful that the snow's been a little light so far this year, so you could finish up AEP before you get too tempted.
That's not too bad. Yeah, yeah, not a bad thing.
All right, guys.
Okay, we'll catch you next week.
Thank you.